Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by GrandTheftWorld.com and the fantastic members who make themselves known to learn a little bit beyond the current events and the news that you see in the precipitation of media every week. We're going to be here for the next 6 or 7 hours. We're going to be smashing this week's news into history and the contextual documents, the evidence, the resources you need to make better decisions in life and to see more clearly, to see through the fog of war so you can understand what's going on at a higher level. This is what it's all about. Let's get started. This is episode 107. We're going to be looking at some stories this week. There was the G20, or in some countries they call it the B20.
I deeply believe into the multi-stakeholder concept, which means we all have to work together. Corporations, of course, governments, civil society, to address the big issues in our world. Of course, if we look at all the challenges, we can speak about a multi-crisis, an economic, a political, a social, an ecological, an institutional crisis. But actually, what we have to confront is a deep, systemic, and structural restructuring of our world. And this will take some time. And the world will look differently after we have gone through this transition process. Politically, the driving forces for this political transformation, of course, is the transition into a multipolar world, which has a tendency to make our world much more fragmented. And for these reasons, events like this one, the G20, and so on, are the very important connectors to avoid a too great segmentation, I would say, blocization instead of globalization of our world. Now, how do we deal with this transition which may last for several years? Not just applying crisis management, not just reacting, but constructing the future with a purpose.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
They got together and decided y'all might need some vaccine passports. You haven't had a vaccine passport track trace database idea going around your head for a while? These people thought about it for you. They got plans for your future. They got plans for the economy. They got plans for your identity. They got plans for you that maybe you should know about.
This is the G20 summit. It just ended in Indonesia and Bali. And this is the Indonesian Minister of Health. Really, this is the headline that came out of it. Breaking, G20 panel calls for global digital health passports. America is part of this G20. And listen to the Indonesian Minister of Health. This is what he had to say. You're not going to believe it.
So let's have a digital health certificate acknowledged by WHO. If you have been vaccinated or tested properly, then you can move around. So for the next pandemic, instead of stopping the movement of the people 100%, which clogged the economy globally, you can still provide some movement of the people. Indonesia has achieved, G20 country has agreed to have this digital certificate using WHO standard, and we will submit into the next World Health Assembly in Geneva as the revision to international health regulation. So hopefully for the next pandemic, we can still see some movement of the people, some movement of the goods, and movement of the economy.
The White House on its own website after the G20 released this declaration. This was the G20 Bali Leaders Declaration. And this is what it says in there under so the gigantic document. But when it's talking about vaccinations, it says we acknowledge the importance of shared technical standards and verification methods under the framework of the IHR. Those are the International Health Relations 2005 to facilitate seamless international travel, interoperability, and recognizing digital solutions and non-digital solutions, including proof of vaccinations. Then it goes on to say, we support continued international dialogue and collaboration on the establishment of trusted global digital health networks as part of the efforts to strengthen prevention and response to future pandemics. That should capitalize and build on the success of the existing standard and digital COVID-19 certificates. So I thought we didn't have those in the United States. And now the White House is saying we need to build on the success of the digital COVID-19 certificates. That's kind of a complete opposition of what the public is being told and what is being reported on. There's a company called Thales. This is a company from France. It's a global technology company focusing on big data, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity, also in transportation. Let's take a look at one of their promo videos from 2020 in October. Look at this.
Hello, everyone. Meet Lucy, student in psychology, and me, her digital ID wallet issued by the government to offer a wide range of identity services. In fact, I'm a handy way of proving and protecting her identity both online and face-to-face. Let's have a closer look at what I can do. I can help governments to better communicate with citizens. Right now, I'm reminding Lucy of the appointment she needs to schedule for her mandatory vaccination. Time to go to her exam. Lucy is a bit stressed out. I'm here to make it easy for her to prove she is the right candidate, with a quick and secure connection between her phone and the examiner's. Exam passed successfully. Quick stop at the doctor's before celebrating, and no time to lose. On the way, Lucy uses me to declare her passport lost. She needs it for her upcoming road trip. No issue. She can request an emergency digital passport without having to go to the authority office. I make official admin a lot smoother. And that's not all. I can also help Lucy request a birth certificate, pay her taxes, or prove who she is when onboarding to new services, such as opening a bank account. I allow Lucy to certify her healthcare coverage entitlement. She's able to decide whether to authorize the doctor to access her medical records or not, ensuring her control over her personal data. Lucy needs one more thing before being all set for her trip to Australia: renting a car. I help her share her driver's license credentials online so that she doesn't have to wait hours in a queue to collect the car when she gets to Brisbane. The rental company benefits from secure and accurate information, and Lucy from a smooth experience. Lucy's friends are waiting for her inside the bar. To allow her to get in, I simply generate a QR code that proves Lucy is old enough, so she doesn't have to share all her ID details with the bar staff. So yes, I'm Lucy's best companion. I protect her identity and official credentials wherever she goes. I provide secured access to public and private services and allow her to have full control over her data privacy. In other words, I give the right access to the right data to the right person. I am also trusted by governments to best support countries' digital transformation, fight against ID fraud, and deliver smooth public services. I am the Thales Digital ID Wallet.
Also, people are dying to get out of Canada, and the government's helping them. Now, no, this doesn't really have to do anything with the COVID. It has to do with the idea of euthanasia, and that Canada is now taking the lead to let some of its citizens self-euthanize.
Now, please don't judge the Canadian people on the leader they voted for, but judge them on how they treat their most vulnerable members. They kill them! According to the Globe and Mail, on March 17th, 2023, assisted dying will become legal for Canadians with mental health disorders as their sole condition. 1 year from now, in March 2023, Canada will become one of the few nations in the world allowing medical aid in dying, or MAID, for people whose sole underlying condition is depression, bipolar disorder, personality disorder, schizophrenia, PTSD, or any other mental affliction. Wow. From let's talk to let's walk you right over the edge. Now, if you're rejected for an adult abortion, I wouldn't worry too much about it, as there are even more options in the pipeline for ending your miserable life. Oculus founder claims to have made a VR headset that will actually kill you if you die in the game. That's one way to get rid of the 40-year-old virgin in your basement.
Alongside that, you've got these 3D printable euthanasia pods that also double as caskets. So we're going to look into some of these newer trends that are out there. Each week, the news gets a little weirder. You're going to need some help getting decoding on these things.
Switzerland legalizes 3D printed portable suicide capsules. A Swiss Medical Review Council has approved portable suicide capsules that can be made with a 3D printer for people who want to end their lives. According to the Daily Mail, the Sarco suicide pods, invented by Exit International, are designed for assisted suicide and may be activated by the individual lying within. Exit International is a non-profit organization that has fought for voluntary euthanasia to be legalized. First, the person must complete a survey to ensure that the decision to end their life is their own. They'll be asked to answer pre-recorded questions and then hit a button to start the process. The user can control the Sarco capsule from within to commit assisted suicide by lowering internal oxygen levels. According to The Independent, the process takes less than a minute, and death occurs through hypoxia and hypocapnia, which are designed to allow a person to go quite sweetly and painlessly. One of the important benefits of the pod, according to Dr. Philip Nitschke, a euthanasia activist and founder of Exit International, is that it can be transferred to an idyllic outdoor setting. We want to get rid of any form of psychiatric examination and give the individual complete control over the approach. Our goal is to create an artificial intelligence screening system that will determine a person's mental capacity. Naturally, there is mistrust, particularly among psychiatrists, he told Swissinfo.ch. In 1942, Switzerland made assisted suicide legal. Ingesting a capsule that puts the person into a coma before they die was the approach used. Last year, over 1,300 people employed the services of euthanasia organizations Dignitas and Exit.
The next story we're going to look at is FTX and SBF, Samuel Bankman-Fried, a name we've all had to learn in the past couple of weeks. Not because we had money in FTX, but because we see it for what it is. It's a place that opened a day or two after they announced Biden's running for president, and it closed right around the time of the midterms. And it's a one-sided political slush fund, money laundering, multi-billion-dollar operation with all sorts of people getting caught with their thumbs in that pie. So we're going to start seeing who's got the dirty hands. Maybe there should be some investigations around such activities.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. The collapse of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX is, even if you're not interested in cryptocurrency, a history-changing event. It may turn out to be the biggest single-day loss of assets in the history of money. Billions of dollars evaporated in just moments, and it's still not clear what happened to a lot of that money. It just disappeared. And as it did, it sparked a growing financial crisis across entire sectors of the economy, a disaster that quite possibly could get very worse very soon. But the story of the FTX implosion is bigger even than the global recession it may cause. It is the story of the complete and utter corruption of the people who run our country. The very people who should have been covering and regulating and reining in FTX and its 30-year-old founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, were instead profiting from the scam. Not just a few of them, nearly all of them. From the news media, paid off by Sam Bankman-Fried, to the leadership of the Democratic Party, also paid off by Sam Bankman-Fried, to the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC commissioner himself, Gary Gensler. They all knew that FTX was not a real company and that Sam Bankman-Fried was a fraud. And if they didn't know that, they certainly should have known that, because it was very obvious to anyone who bothered to pay attention. So, of course, politicians loved the guy because he was just a cash spigot, and that's what they want most. But where were the regulators? Because there is a government that's supposed to be independent of office holders, a regulatory state that keeps Ponzi's from happening. Where were they? Well, Sam Bankman-Fried was himself invited to Washington to consult on crypto regulations. And then he posed for a picture with Maxine Waters, who's the head financial regulator in the Congress. And then the Washington Post, which is the hometown newspaper of government, did no reporting on his actual business. They just wrote a puff piece about how cool is it that the guy with funky hair who can't sit still and sleeps on a beanbag is getting super rich. How did he pull this scam? How did he do that? Well, he did it with religion. That's the quickest way to blind people. If they think you share a common faith, maybe they'll ignore it. And that religion is effective altruism. There are a lot of effective altruists. Maybe you haven't heard of that. It is a kind of religious movement. It's very popular in the tech world and the finance world throughout Silicon Valley and parts of New York. The idea is that you make money not because you're greedy, not because you have a bottomless pit inside you of need that can never be filled, but because you want to help other people and you want to help them in the most efficient way. You want to benefit the greatest numbers of people in the most efficient way. So that means effective altruists get to underpay their housekeepers. They get to stiff the waiter on the tip, and of course they needless to say they do. But that's okay because they're deeply concerned about abstract tragedies like global warming. So if nothing else, effective altruism gives you a moral cover as you rip off investors in order to live tax-free in splendor in some beachfront paradise, as Sam Bankman-Fried did and to this day continues to do. He's still in Albany in the Bahamas. So it goes without saying that Sam Bankman-Fried talked a lot about effective altruism, and in return, FTX enjoyed a very high ESG score, higher than Exxon, which gets your ambulance to the hospital and your plane in the air to see your kids and heats your home. Sam Bankman-Fried was considered a moral leader even as he was ripping off millions of people. But no one benefited long-term from FTX's collapse or will benefit more than government regulators. They are pointing to FTX and demanding more control over cryptocurrency and ultimately the end of the cash economy. Why do we think they're going to do that? Because they're already working on it. SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce said this week that the demise of XTS could be a, quote, catalyst for more regulation. So why should you worry about that? Well, because as we saw in Canada last year, crypto is a huge problem for governments. Governments can't control, ideally, cryptocurrency. You can't freeze someone's personal cold wallet with crypto in it if you don't like what they say. So what does this have to do with the collapse of FTX? Well, it turns out that Sam Bankman-Fried's girlfriend, Caroline Ellison, has a lot of connections to regulators. In fact, the biggest regulator of all in this country. Her father, Glenn, is an MIT professor who worked at that university alongside, drumroll please, Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, which is in charge of cryptocurrency regulation. FTX's general counsel used to work with Gensler on the Commodities Future Trading Commission. Now Gensler is about to get a lot more power. So this thing swells to unsustainable size and inevitably implodes. It collapses, and that collapse is used for a pretext to do what they've been planning to do all along. So it probably shouldn't shock you that right after FTX's collapse, every major bank in this country announced a new partnership with the New York Fed to establish a new digital currency. Oh, digital currency, the one they can regulate and control. Citigroup, Wells Fargo, MasterCard, HSBC, all working on a 12-week digital dollar pilot. The Fed describes this project as a regulated liability network. So what does this mean long term? Well, if they have control of your money because it's digital, you can't stash it under your bed. If they don't like what you say, they can turn it off and you're impoverished.
Also, the FDA came out and said, straight up, they said, we didn't suppress ivermectin and we just recommended you not take it, these sort of things. People didn't lose their jobs. People weren't banned. People weren't censored. People weren't forced to go to Tractor Supply and get horse paste because the FDA, they just recommended against it. There weren't any heavy-handed censorship and unpersoning tactics going on during that time. So it's an example of what I call digital gaslighting. And the digital gaslighting has been getting deeper and deeper, probably for the past year or so. They really it's like they don't know we have access to the Wayback Machine. They delete it from a website like the World Economic Forum, deleting its activities with FTX. But they forget that people go to Internet Archive and they look at the Wayback Machine. Oh, here it is. So people are getting smarter. And I think that's going to make for an interesting end of the year. There's going to be a lot going on with that. Now, some of the biggest news is Vox Populi, Vox Dei. Voice of the people is the voice of God. Such are the tweeteths of Elon Musk. And he reinstated the Orange Man bad today. Now, I didn't follow Trump on Twitter back then. I don't follow Trump on Twitter now, but I do think it's interesting that now that Trump has his own platform and doesn't need Twitter, that he's being offered his seat back at Twitter. Now, the interesting thing real quick in the story was people got to see what were Trump's last few tweets before he got deleted, which was tied to something called January 6th. So now they've had these investigations that are all kind of undone by the fact that the former president of the United States did not call for violence and specifically said, be peaceful. So for that, he got banned from Twitter. And in a world that wants to ban the peacefulness, we have to ask the question, what are the motives of the people behind those activities? And thankfully, maybe now Elon Musk being in charge of Twitter, it's more of a free for all for freedom and free speech. But we will see if Alex Jones graces Twitter once again.
Okay, folks, the results are in. Put the main bank on.
Thank you, Elon. Very cool.
Tell everybody I'm back in the game.
Right now, a historic moment. Donald Trump wins an astounding upset victory.
Tell everybody I'm back in the game.
And the sheer deluge of cope and seethe is absolutely delectable. CBS News was so mad they took their ball and ran home.
In light of the uncertainty around Twitter and out of an abundance of caution, CBS News is pausing its activity on the social media site.
And nothing of value was lost. Yeah, pretty ironic that the threat to democracy people are big mad over the outcome of a democratic poll. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. But that's not democracy. Where are all the mail-in ballots? We need another 3 weeks to count more votes. Elon Musk has reinstated Donald Trump, a man who used his platform to spread medical disinformation to incite a deadly insurrection, back onto Twitter. I've reported Trump's account for advocating violence harassment. I encourage you to do the same. So you've reported the account to Twitter, which is owned by the guy who just restored Trump to Twitter. Well done, genius. What's next? Are you going to lobby Tesla to fire Elon Musk? Hello, is that SpaceX? Yeah, Elon Musk was mean to me on Twitter. Can you terminate his position with the company?
Good day. Got a lot of Elon Musk and Donald Trump fans blocked. About 50 roughly suspended, either temporarily or permanently.
This you just emailed the head of safety at Apple and Google, respectively, to ask if their app stores will continue to carry the Twitter app now that Elon Musk has reinstated Donald Trump. Hi, this is Karen. I'd like to speak to the manager of the internet. I mean, Trump's own app, Truth Social, is on both the Apple and Google app stores. So good luck with that. How many people will die because of this? The same number of Target toothbrushes for sale at $0.01. None. Elon Musk's decisions over the last month have been erratic and alarming, but this decision is dangerous and a threat to American democracy. We need to ask, is it time for Twitter to go? Oh no, we can't weaponize ownership of the public square to ban people and ideas we don't like. So dangerous. Such a threat to democracy that the man who 74 million Americans voted for has a platform. Where's it gonna go? Are these people so crazed with power they think they can Kiwi Farms Twitter?
Sometimes it's okay to celebrate victories.
Life comes at you fast. You're gonna need a new cape, mate. Trump being able to post mean words on the internet is so incredibly dangerous. Say the same people who just lied about Russia bombing Poland. Say the same people who used Twitter to demand NATO exercise Article 5 to start World War III. Yeah, talk to me about dangerous when you stop lobbying for nuclear Armageddon. CNN has an entire section of its website dedicated to taking down Elon's new Twitter. The collapse of FTX and Democratic donor darling Sam Bankman-Fried. Mainstream media writing about Sam Bankman-Fried. Oh dear, gorgeous. Elon Musk, you fucking donkey. Sam Harris, not so fussed about the thought of Hunter Biden having kids' corpses in his basement.
Hunter Biden literally could have had the corpses of children in his basement. I would not have cared.
He's really mad at Trump being able to post things on the internet. With Trump back on Twitter, it's a good time to watch this Jan 6 hearing. It covers each of Trump's tweets that day. Oh, you mean like the ones where he directly told his supporters multiple times to remain peaceful? Elon Musk is letting a man who led a violent insurrection to overthrow the United States government back on this platform. Remain peaceful. No violence. Stay peaceful. Strange talk for a man leading a violent insurrection. Trump's niece, Mary L. Trump, reacted by calling her uncle still a fucking loser. I'm only seeing one loser here. And it's you. Trump's back on Twitter, and I know that because all the people who said they'd leave Twitter have told me on Twitter. Bear in mind, although his account's been restored, technically Trump hasn't even returned to Twitter. He previously said he'd never return, and during a Republican-Jewish coalition meeting yesterday, Trump once again indicated that he's never even coming back to Twitter.
But I hear we're getting a big vote to also go back on Twitter. I don't see it because I don't see any reason for it. They have a lot of problems at Twitter. You see what's going on. It may make it, it may not make it, but the problems are incredible. The engagements are negative, and you have a lot of bots and you have a lot of fake accounts, which I think they should get on. But Truth Social has taken the place for a lot of people, and I don't see them going back onto Twitter.
But it doesn't even matter. His mere presence on the platform, the mere threat that he could, oh my God, he could tweet something, has got them all pissing their pants like there's no tomorrow. The next week is going to be an absolute shit show of deranged hysteria, media meltdowns, and more coordinated attempts to sabotage Twitter. So strap yourselves in for torrent after invigorating torrent of more pure cope and seethe.
Check this out.
All right, so let's go ahead and kick off tonight. Let's go to Luke Radowski for this week's summary from his perspective, and then we'll be right back to kick off the show.
接我的车来了。
在哪里？
等我哈。好。
驾驶出行服务，按照防疫要求，正在核验您的健康状态，请系好安全带，点击屏幕开始行程按钮，开启自动驾驶之旅吧。
Yep, that is a driverless taxi in China with plexiglass to, of course, protect everyone. That will maybe drive you to your destination depending on your social credit score. If it's too low, straight to the gulags.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions. We can get into the show, we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.